pain, hurt, emotional or physical, have you ever felt it, whether mildly or extreme pain or hurt? And if you haven't, do you know people who have? So whether it's from a physical injury or something terrible has happened in your life, somebody's died, a relationship is broken up, somebody's done something to you that has made you feel in pain, it's hurt you. And how do we describe it? What is it? And is there a way to get over it faster? Is there a way to deal with it better? What to do if somebody in your family or somebody you really care about is in pain or they're hurting? And of course, it's one of those things that the experts invest a fair bit of time in. And as humans, we have lots of different ways of dealing with pain. Some people take drugs, drink, gamble, eat lots of food, do crazy things. There's all sorts of ways that we respond or react when we're in pain or when we're hurting. But as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach, as a leader, even as an exercise professional, because obviously we deal with a lot of physical pain. People get injured, whether it's from overuse or a silly exercise or an accident, and then people want to get back to their exercise program, but they're in pain, they're hurting. What can we do to help? And as a parent or a teacher or a coach, a boss or a leader, I'm sure you've had people come to you in pain, hurting, or you've had to deal with personal pain and still be strong for other people. And how do we do that? And the experts have got lots of ideas. And because I've been studying the connection between the brain and the body, and the last very long time now, I won't even guess how many years, studying neuroscience, how the brain works, and what are the things inside our brain that make us feel. How do our emotions work, and what's that got to do with our hormonal and central nervous system? And as an exercise professional, is there anything that I can do personally to be able to help my clients? And as an educator, is there anything I can do to help my students to understand what pain is and how to deal with it more effectively? And I'm certainly no expert. I just have some really interesting things to ponder, to consider, that the experts have shared with me, and they might be helpful if you're in pain or you're helping somebody go through a situation where they're hurting or they're in pain. So the first one is, of course, that there's all different levels of pain, and we don't know what somebody else is feeling. Could it be possible that your pain threshold, and I'm sure you've heard that expression before, is different to somebody else's? So some people can deal with a large amount of physical pain. Their pain threshold is very high. And other people, if they stub their toe or they break a fingernail, they're in excruciating pain. And how do we know what somebody else is feeling? And could that be a really important thing to, even though we can't understand it, at least to be aware of it, that we all have different levels of what we can deal with or what pain means to us. And there's, of course, lots of pharmaceutical painkillers that are available. So if you stub your toe or you break your fingernail or you get a headache, you could certainly go to any chemist or supermarket and get some kind of pain relief. But what is that, and how does it actually work? Can we do it naturally? Do we need to take painkillers? And where does that help up to? So how much can a Panadol or a Nurofen help when it comes to emotional or physical pain? And of course, in a world where we have some very strong drugs for pain killing that are also very addictive, is that something that we should probably learn and understand? And it's been my mission to do that because, again, as an exercise professional, I've dealt with lots of people that have become addicted to pain killing drugs. Very high, intense, addictive pain-killing drugs. And it's had a major negative effect on their life long term. So if I can help people avoid that, I would really like to do that. So the first one is, of course, if it's an accident, if something happens to us where we get physically hurt, nobody wants to see us in pain, and the ambulance folks obviously don't, so they'll give us some kind of painkiller to get rid of the pain as quickly as possible so we're not hurting. And there's certainly drugs that can do that. And as I shared, right down to if you've got a headache or a sore foot. But what should you do about that? If you've got a pain in your head, if you've got a foot that hurts, if you've got an elbow that is giving you some kind of inconvenient feeling that doesn't feel comfortable, what should you do about that? And there's a lot of advice given about what kind of drugs would work, and perhaps don't take drugs, and how much can you handle, and should you keep handling it? And I don't have an answer to that. What I do know from my study of the human brain and the human body is that the body produces its own pain-killing drugs. Now, technically it's called an endorphin. And if you go to the pure physiology of pain, if the body is under threat, if our body feels like somebody's trying to kill us or hurt us, or something is going to stress, or we are feeling stressed because something is trying to do damage to our human body, the body produces some very high intense pain-killing drugs. And the movement drugs, cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline, are designed to get us the hell out of there. So if we're under threat, our body will actually allow us to move. And to do that, the body also produces endorphins, which are natural pain-killing drugs. And if you go a step further, there are some people who will suggest that a powerful injection in your body of an endorphin that you produce yourself from high-intensity activity is as powerful as morphine or heroin. And then we have things like where the human race has produced cannabis, dope, and interestingly, that substance is being used for pain killing, but your body will produce cannabinoids, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly, which is also a unique thing that the human body can do when we're in pain, and are we aware of that, and are we listening to our own body, and are we allowing our body to help us if we are in pain, physical or emotional pain? So I've got to be very aware, because this is a very personal topic and there are all different kinds of pain. But one of the beautiful things I've become very aware of is that those neurotransmitters, those pain-killing neurotransmitters, we can produce them ourselves. If you sprint, if you punch hard, if you kick hard, if you do anything of intense activity where your heart rate goes up really high, whether stress causes it to do that or you force that into your body by doing an intense activity and exercise, your body will produce endorphins, pain-killing drugs. And I think that's really exciting because usually what happens when people are in physical or emotional pain, they sit still, do nothing, freeze, panic, get depressed, become anxious, and the human body stays still. And interestingly, if you move intensely, your body will produce those pain-killing drugs all by itself. I love the human body. It's an amazing machine. So I'm not suggesting that if you are in intense emotional pain because you've lost somebody important to you or a relationship is broken up, that an intense activity or an intense exercise activity will take that pain away. But what if it was possible to take it away for a little while? Or if you are in pain, could it make it worse if you sit still, do nothing, listen to sad songs, eat large amounts of food, drink copious amounts of alcohol and take drugs? Is it possible that whatever pain you're in, it won't help short-term or long-term if you take on board those particular remedies or ideas for pain killing? What if you got hold of a boxing bag and punched the hell out of it or kicked the hell out of it or both? What if you found a flight of stairs and ran up and down them as hard as you can? What if you found some soft sand and sprinted through it? What if you got a skipping rope and just kept going and going and going until you couldn't go anymore? What if you did push-ups or dips or lifted something heavy? Is it possible that your body would produce pain-killing drugs that, whether in the short term or the long term, would give you some kind of pain relief? Now, I can share with you very passionately that is what will happen physiologically, but if you don't do it, it won't work. Would that be fair? So instead of, when you're in a physical or emotional pain, to do what most people do, which is sit still, watch or listen to sad things, get angry and reminisce about why you're in this horrible position or how terrible life is, What if you just got puffed? And I'm not suggesting that it's the answer, but it certainly will change your physiological state and your emotional state. You cannot be miserable or unhappy when you have happy drugs pumping into your brain. And the reason I say that so passionately is when people take pharmaceutical drugs, recreational drugs, they get drunk, they gamble, they do stuff to try and get rid of the pain. That's what happens inside the brain. Then the brain produces dopamine, reward drug, serotonin, satisfaction drug, endorphins, pain-killing drugs, and a lot of the substances that people take, particularly if they come in a pharmaceutical pill form, all of those drugs in a synthesized plastic pill rather than from exercise. But the beautiful thing about exercise is it not only makes you feel good immediately after you do it, but it gives you long-term health effects, and of course your brain will work better. And the big one to really consider perhaps is brain-derived neurotropic factor. Technically, that's a technical name, but think of it as fertilizer for your brain. And is it possible that if you're going through emotional pain, it's very difficult to think clearly? You'll often hear people say, I'm depressed or I'm anxious, I've got brain fog. When you've got brain-derived neurotropic factor in your brain, you have the ability to think more clearly. And two things happen. You'll get neurogenesis, so you'll grow new brain cells, so you can think about things differently because you've got more brain cells to do it with. Or you'll have neuroplasticity in your brain, which is whatever you've thought about something in the past, you actually have the opportunity to change the way you are thinking, the way you are feeling, because neuroplasticity means a change in the brain. And that comes from brain-derived neurotropic factor, that comes from serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, which is what we call the love drug. So there's a suggestion there that they can all be produced. We can get them into our headspace by intense activity. And now there's lots of other things, of course. You can laugh, you can invest time with great people, when you learn, when you have sex, your body will produce these amazing neurochemistry or neurochemicals, neurotransmitters. The chemistry of your brain will change. But ultimately, nothing works as effectively as high intense activity. And of course, the reason for that is that's how the human body is designed. We're designed to survive and we have this fight and flight mechanism inside our body that if we're under threat, if we're in pain, if there's a threat of pain or hurt, that our body will produce those chemicals. So I get really excited about that because we can actually do something about the pain we're in, physically or emotionally, by doing something physical. Now, a lot of people will share with me, but if I'm injured or if I've got a broken leg or I've got a physical incapability, how the hell can I sprint or how can I do something that's going to produce those chemicals? Unless you are completely debilitated, of course, is there something you could do? And I share that with you because there's been so many times in my life where I've had serious injuries, back injuries, knee injuries, shoulders, elbows, where you physically can't do something with any of those joints. But I've always found a way. If I've got an upper body injury, I do something with my lower body. If I've got a lower body injury, I do something with my upper body. If I can't, and I'll use an example, I had a knee injury where I ended up tripping and falling and hurting my opposite elbow. I still got on my cross trainer and pushed with one leg and pushed with the other arm. And I'm sharing that with you not because I'm a fanatical, crazy person when it comes to exercise, but I'm certainly addicted to feeling good from exercise. And I'm very aware that circulation when you're in pain helps get rid of the pain. Blood flow and oxygen helps the injury recover quicker. And I'm also very aware that when I'm emotionally in pain, and yes, I'm a happy, positive person, but I've had some really shit things happen to me in my life, like we all have. I've had some very special and close people die. Both of my parents are no longer here. I've had clients who have passed away. I've had clients with terminal illness. I've had people very close to me who've had horrible things happen to them, and I've had horrible things happen to me. What I'm really aware of is if I want to feel better really fast, I go sprint. And whatever that is, whether that's boxing or skipping or punching or running up a hill or running through soft sand, I will find something that increases my heart rate to the point where I get super puffed, increase the work that my muscles are doing to make sure that they're fully overloaded. And what that does is produce those neurochemicals, which I'll share with you again. Dopamine is a reward drug, so you feel good. Serotonin is a satisfaction drug, so you feel less dissatisfied with your life or whatever's happening to you. And in particular for me, endorphins for pain killing, yes, but brain-derived neurotropic factor so that I can think more clearly. Is it possible that whatever we're going through, we need a clear thinking brain? And if you are a parent, a teacher, a coach, a boss or a leader, we talk about fight and flight, but I always ask this question. If you are responsible for other people, how can you flight? How can you run away? You will get all of those neurotransmitting chemicals happening in your brain if you run away really fast. But if you have to look after other people, you can't sprint away and carry 10, 50, 100 people with you. You have to turn and fight. And we've got both options. We can flight or fight. But if you're an individual person, you might choose to flight. But if you're a boss or a leader or a coach or a parent or a teacher, you may have to fight, or you do have to fight, which means you have to be able to turn around, face the challenge, look it in the eye and say, bring it on. And I think that as humans who actually want to add value to the world, would it be nice to at least have a basic understanding of how important it is to be really fit and really strong, and how really special it is that the human body can produce those chemicals for us. We don't have to drink, we don't have to take pharmaceutical or recreational drugs, we don't have to gamble. We can actually produce those neurotransmitters by doing high intense activity. And should we do that if we want to be able to think clearly? And if you're a leader, parent, teacher, boss, is it possible that you have to think clearly? You can't run away. You have to have a brain that is capable of focusing on the challenge and overcoming it. So the first and foremost, if you want to be able to look after your headspace, look after your physical well-being, and if you are in pain, is it possible that being healthy, fit and strong will help? And by doing intense activity, we can produce pain-killing drugs so we can deal with the pain better and think more clearly about overcoming whatever pain we're in, whether it's physical or emotional. The next thing that the experts suggest is that can we change it? Can we make it better? Or is it something that we have no control over? And often we feel intense pain, emotional pain, by something that somebody we think has done to us or the world has done to us. And it's been suggested that rather than why did this happen to me, or even why did this happen, is it possible that if you can differentiate between what you have control over and what you don't have control over, you'll be in a better position to make decisions. And that's why you've got to have a clear thinking brain. That's why it's really important to have brain-derived neurotropic factor, neuroplasticity, neurogenesis. Get puffed, lift heavy, do something intense to make sure that you can now make a decision about whether or not this thing that's happening to you, is it happening to you? Is it happening to everybody? Can you control it? And if you don't have any control over it, there's this great suggestion is that you have to accept it. If you can't change it, if you can't fix it, if you can't make it better, then you have to accept it. And there's a great stress management suggestion is that accept the worst, plan for it so that when it does happen, it doesn't take you by surprise. And often people share with me, Rowie, that's a bizarre thing for you to say because you're such a positive person. And perhaps that's why I can be so positive, because I expect the worst. I accept that the worst can happen, but then I plan for it so that if something terrible happens, and I'll just use a simple example, we're all going to have pain in our lives, physical or mental, but I'm prepared for it. I don't live my life thinking, I'm going to get in pain today or somebody's going to hurt me or a terrible thing's going to happen. But I'm a pretty aware person that stuff happens. Governments do crazy things. People do horrible things. Mother Nature does horrible things, crazy things. They're going to happen. So what kind of person am I? Am I ready? Am I prepared for anything that can happen? And then when it does happen, have I got a plan for it? And if you live your life like that, is it possible that Very few things can hurt you. And if they do hurt you, and I'll share again, I'm aware that I'm going to have pain in my life, but I'm also very aware that I want to have a fit, strong, healthy body that's able to deal with it. So, can I control it? And for most things, there's not too much we can do about it. But what we do have full control over is how we respond or react to it. So if the government does something, if Mother Nature does something, if other people do something, we can't change them. we can't, and it's one of those really interesting things. Wish they wouldn't do that, or they shouldn't do that, or I could have, should have, would have done that. Well, there's three words that are really silly because there is no could have, should have, would have. We can't change what we've done in the past, so why would we? We have to accept what we've done because we can't change it. That's one of those beautiful things that give you a much healthier headspace and probably much less pain. But if other people do something, we can't say they shouldn't have done that or why did they do that? They just did. It is what it is. What a great statement. So I can't change what the government does, what people do, what Mother Nature does, what happens, but I have full control over how I respond or react to it. So there's a great question. Did those people do that to me, or did Mother Nature do that to me, or did they just do it? So we often take things very personally, and perhaps that's why we get really hurt, because why did that happen to me, or why did they do that to me? Well, maybe they didn't do it to you, maybe they just did it. I don't know why the government makes the decisions that it does. I would never want to be running a country or a state or a kingdom. So I have no interest in even understanding what's going on there. The government will make decisions. The only decision that you and I have is who we vote for. And we have the opportunity, if we live in a democratic society, to be able to vote. Isn't that awesome? After that, what the government does, we have no control over. What other people do, we often hear, they did that to me, or they said that about me, or why did they try and hurt me? Well, they just did. Wouldn't that be a great headspace? They just did. But I now get to choose how I respond or react to that. And we often say that person hurt me. Is there a better question? I allowed that person to hurt me. Even better, and this is a special gift I was given at a very young age. I was only a teenager. I get to choose whether somebody makes me feel a certain way. And if somebody's trying to hurt me and I get hurt, then they won. And as I often share, I'm not particularly interested in winning, but I bloody hate losing. And if somebody's trying to hurt me and I allow them to hurt me, then they've won. And I just won't do that. How about you? Why don't we just make a decision that people can say or do whatever they want to, but I won't let it in, I won't let it affect me. Now, sometimes that's easier than others, but if you feel that somebody's trying to hurt you and you're feeling hurt, go sprint, go punch a bag, go kick something really hard, go for a run. Get rid of that emotional build-up, get rid of that cortisol, those stress drugs, and turn them into happy drugs so you've got a clear thinking brain. Can you see the connection? If you're really fit and if you're really strong physically and mentally, is it possible that you were able to handle whatever the world throws at you so much better? So we can't change what other people do, and we can't change what Mother Nature does. So we often hear people get angry because their house got flooded, or their house got burnt down, or their house got shaken by an earthquake or taken away by a tornado. Those things are going to happen. It didn't happen to us. Now, there's some things we can control. So if you don't want your house to get burnt down, probably don't build a house in the middle of the bush that's surrounded by trees. If you don't want to get flooded, don't buy on a floodplain. There's a very funny story there. Came in and I have one of the first houses that we bought together. And it was a beautiful home, but we were told that it was I think it was a 20-year floodplain. And we took the risk, and within 8 weeks of our new home, it got flooded. And we lost a lot of things, a lot of important papers, and we can blame Mother Nature and we can get angry, but we made that decision. We have to take control. We have to accept. We have to take responsibility for the decision that we made. So there's some things that we have control over, but accidents and Mother Nature just getting cranky, we have no control over that, but we have full control over how we respond or react to that. Isn't it exciting? So can we move on? Can we make it better? Can we learn from it? Can we grow from it? Or will we allow it to hurt us, upset us, make us stressed, make us angry? And do we have a choice? And I'll share again, very easy to logically think about something when you're not going through it. If you're not going through a flood or a bushfire or a bankruptcy or a divorce or somebody in your family's died, it's easy to be logical. But when you're actually going through it and the pain is intense, the emotional, physical pain is intense, what's the painkiller you're going to use? And I'll share again, there are lots of pharmaceutical painkillers, we know that. But isn't it exciting that the human body can produce its own painkillers? And if you make the effort to sprint, to punch, to kick, to lift heavy, to do something that will put intense pain-killing neurotransmitting drugs through your own brain, through your own body, and then most importantly, that brain-derived neurotropic factor which will help you think more clearly, is it possible that we can make better decisions and perhaps hurt less, or the pain will be less intense? Last but not least, there's those things that happen to us that other people, we can say other people do. So we're in a relationship and it breaks up. And the third part of this is, number one is be really fit and strong. Number two is accept what you cannot change the things that you can. And number three is it my fault? And if it is my fault, what am I going to do about it? So if we can say the relationship broke up and we can blame the other person, but should we have a look at what we did? We chose the relationship, so there's a great place to start. If you dated yourself into a relationship, were you awake and aware of the things that might have ended up hurting you? And these are really harsh questions, because when we're in pain, of course, we want to blame somebody else. If something's hurting, we want the pain to go away. So I don't want to take responsibility for whatever I did. Let's blame someone else. But is it possible that if we take responsibility for whatever we did, that's the thing that we have control over? And if we've got control over it, then we can change it. And that's the beautiful thing. If we don't have any control over it, we accept it and move on. All we can do is control how we react or respond to it. But if we have control over it, what are we going to do about it? So if somebody left us because we were nasty or negative or criticizing or lazy or undisciplined or any of the things that we don't want to admit about ourselves, is it possible that we can change that? If somebody left us because they weren't happy, is it possible that that's a good thing? And I always share this when people say to me, I've just gone through a divorce or I've just had a relationship breakup. I always say congratulations, because obviously somebody wasn't happy in that relationship. Now, if it was you and you broke up the relationship and you left, congratulations, because there's why would you stay somewhere where you're not happy? But if the other person broke it up because they're not happy, can you make somebody else happy? And would it be a really good idea that if they're not happy, that they need to go and find out what will make them happy? Now, again, I'll share that's really easy to say all of that when you're not going through the pain. But perhaps prepare for it. So perhaps choose relationships where you're really aware of what you're looking for. A lot of people go into a relationship. I'll ask the question, have you ever been into a relationship where the original lust and romance was so hot and exciting that you didn't look for what might happen in the future? And then the things that were originally hot and exciting turned out to be the things that made you angry or annoyed you or upset you. And do we need to take responsibility for that? Great question. So very last, when it comes to pain, and it's certainly not last, but for today, what is the opposite to love? And a lot of people will say hate, of course. The emotional and behavioural experts will share with us that hate is a very strong emotion and love is a very strong emotion. So if we're feeling strong emotions about anything, it means that we are emotionally attached. We've got feelings. It's been suggested by the experts that the opposite to love is indifference. The opposite to pain is no pain. So you actually don't feel it. And I'll use an example. If you have an injury, and I had one this year where I tripped over when I was running my dog. I landed without any braking on my fall on my shoulder. And it was painful, really, really painful. Couldn't move my arm. intense pain. And now when I think about my shoulder, there is nothing there. I don't feel anything because I'm not even aware of my shoulder anymore because the pain's completely gone away. I'm indifferent to my shoulder. And that takes a bit of time. So there's the intense pain, then it becomes less pain, and then it becomes just an ache, and then it becomes a little bit annoying because it's not quite right. And then you become indifferent to it, unaware of it because it's completely healed, the pain's gone away. So that's a physical pain. If you cut yourself, there's that initial stress, and there's blood, and it hurts, and even if it's only a little paper cut, you get that sting, and then it kind of, you can touch it and it still hurts a little bit, and then before long there is nothing. You don't even remember that there was a cut there because it's gone. It's been suggested that we want to speed up that process. If you have a broken heart, if you have an aching heart and you're in intense pain, how long before you can feel indifferent? And I use a classic example. You find your partner has been cheating on you with your best friend. And I'm not sure that there's a worse scenario in relationships because you've lost two people. There's two things to consider there. One is, isn't that awesome? Obviously, this is not a good person to have a relationship with because they're cheating on you with your best friend. And obviously, this is not your best friend because they're sleeping with your partner. It's easy for me to say that logically, because I'm not going through that. But if I was going through that, that would probably be really intense pain. But is it possible that in a period of time, and it could be a very long time, but you might see those two people together, they might be happily married and children, and you just see them and you feel nothing. There's no pain anymore. Now, for some people, that never goes away. They're bitter and twisted and angry and depressed and really, really pissed off for the rest of their lives, and it affects them for the rest of their lives. Here's a great suggestion. Could it be a really good idea to get over that as quickly as possible? And are there quicker ways to do it? Now, the immediate intense pain of that is go punch a bag or do something to increase your heart rate so that you can pump some happy drugs into your brain pretty quickly. But how long does it take to become indifferent to that particular situation or any pain? And it's been suggested if you want it to happen quicker, yes, be healthy, fit and strong. Yes, keep your brain healthy, fit and strong by brain-derived neurotropic factor. You want to have as many happy chemicals, clear thinking chemicals in your brain as possible so that you can go from emotional to logical as quickly as possible. And that's where taking responsibility comes in, and it's hard and it probably hurts to even admit that you have to take responsibility. But is it possible, and I'll use that horrible scenario, is it possible that if your partner is sleeping with your best friend, that you pick those people? So I have to take responsibility for having that kind of person in my life. Was I aware of what was going on before I found out? Should I have been more aware? And are there a lot of questions I can ask myself about what responsibility do I need to take for this situation? Or even better, I can't take any responsibility for it. I'm very happy I found out that my partner's not a nice person, my best friend's not a nice person, and isn't it awesome that I found out, so now I can move on? How quickly can I get to that position? I'd have to start thinking about that straight away, wouldn't I? Would it be a really good idea to look at any situation, any tough, I've been fired from my job, I've gone broke, I'm unwell, I'm overweight, something's happened in my life, and I'll go back to the original one, which is, do I have control over it? If I have no control over it, move on. I have control over how I react or respond to it. But if I do have any form of control, do I need to take control, and do I need to take control as quickly as possible? So there's those three things to consider. Am I really fit and really strong? And if I'm in pain, am I producing as quickly as possible the pain-killing chemicals that my body can produce? And that comes from doing intense activity by sprinting, punching, kicking, lifting. And it's interesting because I'll rephrase again. Most people don't consider high intense activity as a pain-killing activity. But if you are in pain, physical or mental, and you lie on the couch and you watch horrible, sad movies, or you listen to sad songs and you become depressed? Is it possible that your body can't cope with anything very well? Is it possible that if you stay fit and strong and you get circulation and oxygen and fresh air and sunshine and brain-derived neurotropic factor and dopamine and serotonin and endorphins pumping through your brain as quickly as possible, that you'll be able to deal with any situation more effectively? So number one is healthy, fit and strong, get puffed, do intense activity. Number two is, do I have control over the situation? If not, accept it and move on. But I can control how I react or respond to it. If I do have control over it, then best I take responsibility for what I did, and could I then make changes so that this doesn't happen to me again? And it doesn't matter what situation you look at, whether it's a relationship or an injury, or a bad job choice, or a bad sporting choice, or whatever decisions we make. If we take responsibility for our decisions and we learn and grow from them instead of getting angry, annoyed and hurt about them, is it possible that we could become indifferent much, much quicker? And interestingly, is it important to cry? Is it important to be sad? Is it important to accept that this hurt is in my life? And again, having had people very close to me die and have terminal illness, and I've lost some very, very special, important people in my life. Yes, it's important to, I would like to say, celebrate their life rather than be sad that they're gone. And it's easy for me to say that because I'm not going through it at the moment. But one of the things that certainly helped me get through all of those situations is not be sad or angry that a person is gone or one of my beautiful pets is gone. It's to celebrate that they were in my life in the first place. And I'll ask this very personally. There's a lot of people that are scared to go into a relationship. I have people share with me they don't want to get another dog or get a dog because they're scared that dog will die and that will be painful. I've had people share with me quite often that they don't want to get into another relationship because their last one was so painful they never want to go through that again. But interestingly, isn't it beautiful that you could love somebody, love a person or a pet so much that when they go, when they die, when they leave you, that it's really painful. There are some people that never have that, because with intense pain will obviously have been intense pleasure. If somebody dies or somebody leaves you or a relationship breaks up and you don't feel anything, you're indifferent to it, obviously it wasn't very important, yeah? If your pet dies and you don't feel anything, then obviously that pet wasn't very important to you. But if you have intense pain because somebody has died or somebody has left you, is it possible that that relationship was really special and really important? And what a beautiful thing to feel. There are a lot of people that spend their whole lives existing but never feeling that intense love. And with intense love, of course, comes intense something else. There's always an opposite. So unless we live our life completely indifferently to everything, and the psychiatrists have names for people like that, isn't it awesome that we get to feel intense love and intense pain and intense hurt and intense anger and intense anything, because that means we're feeling. And wouldn't it be just great to accept those feelings? So if you're feeling really angry, go, yes, I'm really angry. Go punch the bag. I'm really upset. Isn't it awesome that I'm so upset? Because obviously what I'm upset about is really important to me, because if it wasn't important to me, I'd be indifferent to it. And if you want to get over the pain that you're feeling as quickly as possible, how about we accept responsibility for the things that we can change? Learn and grow from the things that we can't change. And what if we keep our body in peak physical condition, so we're constantly pumping neurochemicals into our brain that will allow us to think clearly and think logically, so that we can make those decisions to make our life happy, to make our life intense, to make better decisions, or just to keep moving forward. And none of those decisions can be made unless we have a brain that's healthy, fit and strong. So here's a great question. Do you want to live your life with as many emotions as possible? Do you want to live your life feeling as much as possible and having as many experiences as possible? And if the answer is yes, is it possible that those could bring with them pain, risk, anger, hurt? But why would we want to live without them? is it possible that everything we've ever been through has made us the person we are now? And if we don't like the person we are now, is it possible that whatever we decided to do in the future, when it comes to our headspace and our physical and mental well-being, could have an effect on the rest of our life? And could that be a great question?